Welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got a fan favorite. We're gonna be going over how to close more business from online leads and prospects as a financial advisor. Over the past 3 years, we've worked with hundreds of different advisors, and we've gotten to see all of the different sales processes. We've gotten to see those who close at a higher rate than don't. And so we've started to accumulate the data and the insights of what works and what doesn't. The big thing is obviously going to be there's a big difference between referrals or in-person kind of business that people are used to and the online space and closing business that way. So in this video, I'm gonna break down some of the biggest keys to closing more online business, as well as a framework to use for actually closing business as an advisor when you're utilizing paid traffic for your firm. If you've ever run ads or you've ever even bought leads or done anything related to virtual prospects, you know that the close rate is much lower than referrals. Obviously, it's gonna be for any industry, it's gonna be for anything. A referral is always going to be higher. And so the reason for that is not that referrals are easier to close, because they are. It's not only that referrals are easier to close, it's that you're using the approach to close someone who's already bought in, basically at a different stage of the buying process, on someone who is at a much different spot. The iPad will help explain this. When you have prospects, you have a scale. On one end, you have client. On the other end, you have data point. And a data point is going to be a lead, just a name, email, phone number, something basic. When a referral comes in, they are basically at the point of close. They are right here. They come in as a referral. They are not all the way closed, but you basically just had to give them the little push and they become a client. And typically you give them that little push by being their friend. You want to overly impress them with how nice you are. They're almost guilted into working with you because they were referred to you by someone, and maybe or likely they're friends with that someone who's your client, and so they think now that they are not just friends with you. This actually is the same way for people you meet in person. This could be like events or COIs or just going out and about and meeting people. Same way, you're shaking hands, kissing babies, and winning business. And so sure, they might care a little bit about your process, but they don't really care about the process because they already trust that your process is good because they were referred to you by someone or you're at an event networking with them. And so your process doesn't really mean much to them. They just care about, do I like you? And so what happens here is you get in this habit of thinking that the advisory industry is all a game of, do they like me? How do I make people like me? And so what happens on this end is you use this same approach for internet prospects who, again, start all the way over here at this end. And so how do you get them to this point where they care more about, do I actually like the person? There's a large gap we're missing here, right? And so when you jump and you start trying to use the, hey, you should like me, I'm really nice, or I'm really good, or how was your day, you're immediately gonna lose those people. Because someone that comes as an internet lead is much different. And I'll explain here. Again, when you think of your referral or the friend, how are you closing them? Well, typically it is with friendliness. You always start with, how's your day going? You go with catching up, relating, things that you in the industry make standard because it's so focused on referrals initially. But when it comes to sales in any other way, no one really does this, right? This is not how you win business. Now, if we go over to kind of cold internet leads, someone coming in through an ad has a much different expectation. Let's think about how we frame everything, especially if you've watched other videos on our channel. We talk about building authority, giving value, and educating prospects. So if that's the case, when someone finally books in with you, they probably do not care if they like you much. Maybe to a little extent, they care a little bit. You're obviously a nice person, but they do not care about how your day was. They don't care about your family. Half the times they're not even near you. So when you come in with this, oh, hey, great to meet you. Thanks for booking the appointment. Super excited to talk with you. You immediately lower all that authority, all that status that we've built up through our campaigns, through positioning you as this expert in your field, in your industry. You just immediately deteriorated that because you got so excited and acted like you've never seen someone book on your calendar for expertise and advice. And so their expectations are much different. They are expecting expertise, they're expecting value, a process, they're expecting to leave knowing more than they did when they came in there. They're not booking on to have a fun conversation. They are coming in saying, yes, I'm considering working with said person, but they want to see it that when they join this call, you already know their pain points. You already know what they're experiencing. You already know how to take them from where they're at right now to that dream outcome they're looking for. And so if you join in and you start talking about the weather and where they live and all of this, it's not going to do anything. They might laugh, they might smile, they might look like they're engaged, and that's when you'll get get the good old, man, why did they ghost me? Why didn't I hear from them? I feel like I had such a good conversation with them. Well, the issue is you had a conversation about small talk and tried to make them your friend. When you've never met this person in person, you probably won't meet this person in person for a while, if ever, if they're an internet client. And so you just took an entirely wrong approach. And so how do we fix this? I'm gonna give you a couple of tips and notes here. Never ask how someone's day was going. I do not believe in the whole, they joined the call, how was your day? What's going on? How you been? You know, where are you calling? And you know, you can do some subtle small talk, but it should be no longer than 15 to 30 seconds. Even if they start diving in a little, you nip it in the butt, because you do not want them to come in now thinking that they're your friend. At least not right now. We are trying to maintain that figure of authority and show them that you are the best of the best and that they need to work with you. So instead, what you need is a very strong process. And what I mean by that is when they join the call, it should be, hey, nice to meet you. Great, where are you calling in from? Boom, perfect, awesome. Well, yeah, I see we've got about 60 minutes set aside here. Today, really what you booked in for, I see you gave us some basic information, kind of where you're at. I want to dive a little bit deeper into where you're at and where you're looking to get to in your retirement and take you through our process and see if we might be the ones that can help you get there. If not, that's okay. We can go our separate ways, but I want to definitely get in there and dive into what we have planned for today. Boom. Oh, sound fair? Great. Yeah, sounds fair. Awesome. So today, a couple of things. I'll start off kind of just getting to know kind of your situation, XYZ. Then I'll walk you through our process and our framework and how we go about retirement planning. And then at the end of the call, we can kind of just take a second and review, answer any questions we have. Sound fair? Awesome. Great. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about XYZ. Now, you might be thinking right now, well, how do I build rapport? I'm not going to build any rapport. They're not even going to like me. It's just going to be like an interview. You build rapport through your discovery. People don't care. Building rapport does not come from me asking you how the weather is or how your day was. Building rapport comes from when I ask a question. Building rapport comes from when I ask a question that hits so closely home to a pain point you have, it almost feels like I said it in the exact words you were looking for. Building rapport comes from showing them a process that is exactly what they wanted, but they didn't know exactly how to lay it out onto paper. And so that is where you actually build rapport and get people to close and pay you money as an advisor. It's not from the whole friendly thing. It's not from the referrals. It's not the way that a lot of advisors do it. And there is really no proper sales training out there for advisors, or at least not very much modern sales training, especially from seeing insights of so many different advisors and what works and what doesn't. Because no matter how good of a lead you get, no matter how good your ads are performing, if you can't close business and you don't know how to sell properly and have a system for it, it's never gonna work. Now that leads me to the next kind of portion is you need a system. And what I mean by system is you need a process. And I'm gonna show you exactly what our process looks like and how we go about that. So you need a system and you need a process. Now, I'm not gonna share you our exact sales system because that is what we give to our digital wealth prospecting program members, but I will give you some high level stuff that you can take and start to implement for yourself and create your own sales process. The first thing is you always need sales assets. So what is sales assets? This is PowerPoints, this is PDFs, this is documents. So when someone goes, oh yeah, so like what's the next steps? It's not, well yeah, so what we'll do is I'll schedule you and it's, no, here's exactly what the next steps are. You can lay that out. Here's my investment strategy. Here's why we're different. Here's why the firm started. And so when people ask these questions, it's not just you talking because it's not very professional. If I don't have any assets, it's hard to trust me, right? But instead I go, boom, here's a sales asset. Here's another sales asset. Oh yeah, glad you asked. Here's exactly what our process looks like. So you need sales assets. 2, you need a sales process. This shouldn't be yeah, let's just keep scheduling appointments until maybe you close or, we'll keep scheduling follow-ups. This should be, yeah, so this first call is what's gonna happen right here, right? This is the discovery. This is where we get all the information we need. Then this next call is going to be where I dive in and present you a little proposal or game plan. Then from there, we either get started with a plan or you move assets over, that's that. Now, if it gets to the second call and they need maybe one more day or they want to talk about it or think about it, obviously you have to do objection handling, but from there, you can play it as is. You don't want them to just think that there's no set amount of calls. You don't want them to think there's not a process. And now you might be thinking, well, that will scare people away if they think that I'm gonna try and close them on the second call. Well, if they were scared away to even book a second call just because they thought you might close them, they probably weren't going to close in the first place, and you should be generating better appointments and leads. Because the whole idea of marketing is for you to get people in the door who are actually interested in potentially working with you, not just to sit down and have conversations with you. That's a big misconception that a lot of advisors have. And so the third thing is going to be data. Once you have your sales assets in your sales process, every sales call should be ran the same exact way. There should never be any discrepancy. It shouldn't be just on a whim, we decide to run our sales call this way this one time, then I do it different for this person. It should be the exact same every time, because exactly how you see imperfections in the metrics or bottlenecks in the metrics for advertising, it's the same way with the sales process. So if you start to notice, all right, you've got your little process here, you've got, call 1 is your discovery, then you got call 2, proposal, call 3, we'll say is the follow-up if needed. And if you start to notice that a lot of people are falling off right here in the discovery before they even get to the proposal, well, we know that this is obviously then an issue with your discovery. So it might be one, you're not asking the right type of questions. Two, you're not framing the call proposal the right way. And so what you do is then when you have a script, right? And you should, again, this is something I should have added. When I say sales process, I mean a script. Now, does that mean you sit there and read the screen word for word? No, but it should be a script that you're pretty familiar and comfortable with, where you could basically say it without needing the script. You should have to memorize. It takes work if you want to be good at sales and close business. But because we have that, we can now go and tweak subtle things. Maybe we tweak the way that we frame the second call, right? Maybe we tweak the questions we're asking. We tweak the little things. Now, maybe you're getting everyone to book in for that second proposal meeting, but then you get the drop off here and no one's actually booking, or showing up to those call threes, or no one's closing here. Well, that means the benefits, maybe you're not even presenting a good proposal. Maybe the benefits you're listing aren't the ones that hit home. And so what happens is we start to get data, we start to see the bottlenecks, and we can fix them so we can actually fix our close rate and close more business. Because at the end of the day, the metric that is going to affect your ROI the most in any advertising campaign is your close rate. If you can increase your close rate, now obviously there's levels, right? At a certain point, once you get above a 25-30% close rate, that's very good in the advisory industry, especially for cold internet leads. Then there's other things you want to optimize. But if you're closing at 5% or 10%, that is terrible. And if you can get that up to 20, you've instantly either doubled or 4x the actual ROI because you just had a sales process and got better. And so yes, you have to build the sales assets, the decks, the PDFs, the proposals, all these different pieces. Yes, you have to have the sales process, the scripts, you need to know what questions to ask, all these different pieces. And yes, you need to track the data properly, because that's what creates an actual system where you can predictably do sales and know what works and what doesn't. And again, that's exactly what we build and what we give in our digital wealth prospecting program. But it's been the culmination of looking at so many different advisory firms and what they're doing and seeing, okay, what's working and what's not. And then packaging that in a way that is structured where we can then split test different things the same way we would split test a funnel. So I hope that gave some insights into how obviously sales works, maybe gave you a couple of nuggets in terms of, okay, here's what I need to go and do to improve my sales process so I can actually close more business. Because as soon as you can start closing, yes, you still care about marketing, but all of a sudden you're not as worried about if your cost per lead is $20 or $30, because you know your close rate is very effective and you will get the ROI that you need. So if you like this one, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, tune in for more content where we share insights of us scaling firms from $0 all the way to $1 billion in AUM, free for you on this channel. And I'll see you next time.